The Velvet Phantom, France's greatest royal secret. In the shadowy halls of the Bastille, beneath stone walls that held the cries and secrets of generations, a figure passed away in silence in the 60th year of Louis XIV's reign. He had arrived in chains over 3 decades earlier, his face eternally hidden behind a mask, not of iron as legend would later claim, but of velvet, rich and dark, as if spun from secrecy itself. To the guards, he was merely a number, a task in the ledger. To the world outside, he was a phantom. But to Louis XIV, the Sun King himself, he was a danger so profound that his very identity was a threat to the throne. It was the year 1669 when the prisoner was first brought to Pignerol, a grim fortress used for state prisoners. He traveled under heavy guard, with orders from the king that no one should see his face or speak of his name. The man who watched over him, Bénigne d'Auvergne de Saint-Mars, had served the crown loyally. Even he, despite his years of service, was forbidden from learning who the man was. The mask, soft and luxurious, yet suffocating in its symbolism, never left the prisoner's face, not even in death. Saint-Mars would be the only companion this masked figure knew. From Pignerol to exile, then to the island prison of Sainte-Marguerite, and finally to the Bastille itself, Saint-Mars remained both jailer and reluctant caretaker. Over the decades, the prisoner never attempted escape. He never spoke out of turn. And still, he terrified the highest echelons of French power. In these various fortresses, the prisoner's daily routine was strictly monitored and heavily guarded. Meals were passed through secure compartments, correspondence was non-existent, and any message from the outside world was rigorously censored. The guards assigned to him rotated frequently to prevent familiarity. Many of them, upon being dismissed, found themselves mysteriously reassigned or silenced. Such was the aura of danger surrounding the masked man. The isolated conditions of his imprisonment meant that even seasoned jailers often left their service shaken. A man of learning and noble bearing confined to utter obscurity, his mere presence challenged every assumption about justice, monarchy, and identity. Some guards reported a profound unease, as if they were part of a secret so terrible that knowledge of it became a punishment itself. No records bore his name, no visitors ever came. Those few guards assigned to him were sworn to absolute silence under pain of death. Rumors swirled like court gossip. Was he the illegitimate son of Anne of Austria, the twin brother of Louis XIV, a disgraced noble, an heir to the throne of some foreign power? What made the prisoner so dangerous was not what he did, but who he was. Identity in the 17th century was power. Bloodlines dictated succession, allegiance, and legacy. Should this man have been a claimant to the throne, even by a whisper of scandal or divine right, he could have unraveled the monarchy. For Louis XIV, who ruled as God's chosen sovereign, the existence of such a man was an abomination. But kings are bound by optics as much as by power. Execution could breed martyrdom. Silence, secrecy, and slow disappearance? That was a king's justice. His identity may have also threatened powerful factions within the court. The Queen Mother, ministers like Colbert or Louvois, and even the Pope had stakes in who held legitimate power in France. The prisoner might have been a pawn or a peril in a game of dynastic chess stretching across Europe. The Papal States, Spain, and England all watched French succession with interest and interference. At Versailles, Louis XIV played a long game of image. The court was a stage, and every role was curated. To introduce the unknown into that theater, especially one with legitimate royal claims or hidden knowledge, was to risk unraveling the very fiction of absolutism the king depended upon. Thus, the man behind the mask became a necessary fiction in reverse. He existed to be forgotten. Why velvet? Historians have speculated. The famed author Voltaire, who was imprisoned in the Bastille decades after the prisoner's death, popularized the idea that the mask was made of iron. But those who traced the real accounts found descriptions more refined. Velvet, not iron. Not for comfort, but for concealment. Velvet was quieter, less conspicuous, and capable of portraying a kind of elegance even in degradation. The mask served not only to hide the man's face, but to erase his humanity. Despite this, the prisoner maintained a dignified demeanor. Reports from Saint-Mars suggested that he was well-educated, courteous, and refined in taste. He received books, good food, and fine clothing. He showed no signs of madness, no violence, no desperation. He was, by all accounts, a gentleman, locked away for being born. Even in his silence, he managed to stir the imaginations of those around him. Servants whispered about his noble bearing. Some believed him to be a poet or philosopher, others a dispossessed prince. His tastes, refined and cultivated, spoke to an upbringing in the highest echelons of society. Yet his circumstances condemned him to the lowest form of existence, living, but denied the very right to be known. There are tantalizing accounts from visiting officials or passing dignitaries who, while not permitted to see the masked man, made note of his presence in letters or memoirs. Their veiled references, a man of noble presence hidden from daylight, hint at an awareness of something too terrible to state plainly. The velvet mask became a symbol not just of concealment, but of complicity. Louis XIV built Versailles as a temple to absolutism, where the sun never set on his control. And yet, in a series of prisons, he kept a secret that gnawed at the very foundations of divine rule. That this man lived, hidden, masked, forgotten, suggested that even the Sun King feared something. When the prisoner died in 1703, he was buried under the name Marchioli, a name likely fabricated to further obscure his real identity. Even in death, the state kept his secret. Saint-Mars, ever loyal, followed the order to the letter. There was no grand funeral, no marker of identity, just a grave that swallowed one of France's most enduring mysteries. That same year, rumors erupted across Paris. The prisoner's death became a whisper in salons and brothels, on the streets and in the academies. Intellectuals speculated wildly, while the court denied everything. The Bastille's logbook merely noted a death, nothing more. Yet no action taken by Louis XIV was without reason or resonance. That he kept this man hidden for over 3 decades suggests that the truth, if revealed, would have shattered the very myth of the Sun King. Writers of the Enlightenment seized upon the story. Voltaire's account, though partly fictional, gave voice to suspicions long held by those skeptical of royal virtue. The idea that a king could imprison his own brother, or worse, his own twin, without trial or mention became a parable for tyranny. The velvet mask was no longer just an accessory, it was an emblem of unchecked power. Centuries have passed, and the identity of the man in the velvet mask remains one of Europe's most haunting enigmas. Historians, authors, and filmmakers have all speculated, turning the prisoner into a myth. Alexandre Dumas fictionalized him as the twin brother of the king in The Man in the Iron Mask, further romanticizing the tale. But the real man, whoever he was, remains a cipher. Was he a royal embarrassment? A political pawn who knew too much? Or a symbol of how absolute power can silence truth itself? Theories have abounded over the years. Some claim he was Count Ercole Antonio Mattioli, an Italian diplomat who betrayed French secrets. Others believe he was General Vivien de Boulange, punished for military cowardice. Still others argue for a deeper conspiracy. A twin brother separated at birth to preserve the sanctity of monarchy, his existence made impossible by the need for an indivisible crown. Even Napoleon Bonaparte is rumored to have taken interest in the prisoner's identity, perhaps seeing in him a reflection of the fragile line between ruler and pretender. The archives were searched, the graves disturbed, but no definitive truth emerged. The mystery only grew, fed by the silence of history. In a world where kings ruled by divine right and secrets could shake empires, the man in the velvet mask was perhaps not the most dangerous man in France because of what he did, but because of what he was. And for that, the Sun King, in all his glory, dared not kill him. As the Bastille crumbled in the fires of revolution nearly a century later, its stones bore witness to many untold stories. But none were so cloaked in silence as the man in the velvet mask. His story is not just one of captivity, but of erasure, the deliberate, strategic deletion of a life too dangerous to exist. He has become more than a man. He is now metaphor, a figure cloaked in velvet and myth. He stands for every secret a regime must bury to preserve its image. Every time power silences a truth, it conjures a new version of the man in the velvet mask. A prisoner not just of iron bars, but of perception, identity, and fear. And yet, his memory endures. Not in state archives or royal tombs, but in whispers, in speculation, and in the enduring power of mystery. The man in the velvet mask remains a silent indictment of tyranny, a man whom even the most powerful king in Europe feared to name. A prisoner of identity, a ghost in velvet, the man the Sun King dared not kill.